So you're writing a story, fiction story, maybe a script of some sort, maybe a novel, short story, whatever it is, and you're working your way through the plot, through the characters, and you just feel this pressure to include character development, to include character growth. You've been told, you heard, you just have this sort of deep-seated feeling through the zeitgeist and things you've read that good literature, good writing has character growth in it. And your protagonist, you're struggling to make your protagonist grow. It just isn't happening easily in your head. So what do you do? Is it necessary? Do you have to have your protagonist undergo some character growth? Well, let's explore some of these ideas. And to explore some of these ideas, let's bracket character growth. A couple of examples of the extremes. So on the very far side of no character growth. Now, whenever you mention Star Trek, people will hate whatever you say. The true fans will pop up someplace and say, I've gotten this all wrong. And there was character growth. Take any random episode, not entire season arcs, but any random episode of science fiction TV shows in that sort of ballpark. And a lot of them use character archetypes where we've got, the tall, broad-shouldered hero who's going to resolve the situation. We've got the dashing, tough fighter who's going to be aggressive in the situation. We sort of know the empathetic, soft-hearted character who will respond with kindness in the situation. We sort of know what all of these characters are going to bring to the situation. And those archetypes are cleverly used by the writers. That's not mistakes. That is a shorthand that a writer with only 22 minutes to convey an entire story, an entire plot, is relying upon as a common point of departure for all of the audience to sort of go on this journey with their writers and know who will respond in which ways predictably without having to develop all of those because they don't really have time. That's not bad writing. That's good writing. They're using the characters that we expect in ways that we expect to further the stories they want to tell within the constraints that they have. This 22-minute episode is a very constrained format. So that's fiction writing without character growth that isn't bad because it doesn't have character growth. It actually is a completely fine way to write. It's sort of, and criticizing that for not having character growth is sort of like criticizing portraiture painting for only being rectangular and only being a painting of a person. It's sort of like, well, that's what that art form is. That's what that writing is. The far other end of the spectrum of character growth would be something like Patrick O'Brian's magnum opus, the Aubrey Maturin series of books, and the movie adaptation, Master and Commander. There was 20 some odd books and written over the lifetime of the author and written over the lifetime of the characters. When you first meet these characters, Jack Aubrey and Stephen Maturin, they are young men just starting out their career. And over the course of these, 1.5 million pages of story, you experience them grow through their career and develop as men into middle-aged men and older men, and they go through all of their relationships, and you really do see these characters grow and develop in a way that almost no other fiction I've ever experienced has ever come close to. It is astounding what they can do. Now, am I saying that Star Trek writers are just as good as Patrick O'Brian? No. No, I am not. Patrick O'Brian is a fantastic writer, and his writing is very exemplary, not the least of which because of the character growth. But you don't need to be Patrick O'Brian to write a good story and to have good writing and to do what you want to do with your stories. Your protagonist, if you want character growth in your story, your protagonist doesn't need to be the one to undergo character growth. It can be an ancillary character. Sherlock Holmes didn't really grow as a person in most of his stories. There was lots of growth by ancillary characters who faced these sort of moments of adversity who Sherlock Holmes helped to resolve, and those characters changed because of that. But that main character, that protagonist, so to speak, of Sherlock Holmes, was really a mechanism to guide the readership, to guide the audience through the story. And having character growth in that sense wouldn't really make a lot of sense. So if you want character growth, it might be easier to put it in place of a side character, or have a side character develop as opposed to having a protagonist develop. Your protagonist is the main character in the sense that that's what the sequence of plot events follows, but it isn't necessarily the character that needs to do all of the emotional lifting and all of the character growth in every aspect of the entire story. You can offload a lot of the other fun parts of writing onto ancillary characters. So don't feel like your protagonist needs to undergo growth. Yes, a lot of good writing, when you read the Brothers Karamazov or Anna Karenina or any of these sort of deep, really thick tome kind of classic literature of canon literature, and you go, well, this story was fantastic because it had character growth. Yeah, cool. Those stories were fantastic because they had character growth. And you know what? Foundation by Isaac Asimov was fantastic and didn't have a lot of character growth. It is an element. It's not the only element. And what I'm saying is, if you write a story and you're feeling like you have to contort it in some way, if you have to shoehorn character growth into it, you're doing it wrong. Don't force it. If that character grows because of the events that happen to them, fantastic. The audience will resonate with that. If you feel this sort of deep-seated, good literature has character growth, therefore I must foist this upon my protagonist, take a step back, just write your story the way it's going to be, and it will be all the better for it. Just because the main theme of your story isn't character growth does not mean your story is not going to be enjoyable, is not going to be, your story can be enjoyable, can be well written, can be a good story, and have little or no character growth. Don't worry about it. It's okay. You don't need to force something in there just because that was an element of classics or what your literature teacher emphasized or focused upon. So, if you guys have thoughts on this, add them in the comments. The more we continue these conversations, the better all of our writing will be, and the more we'll enjoy each other's writing. Thank you very much.